Get ready to laugh out loud? Here are the 5 best jokes of the day that will have you cracking up in no time. Hey everyone, let me tell you about this kid in 1st grade, little Timmy. This kid was a little firecracker. He strutted into class, crossed his arms like he owned the place, and proclaimed, "I'm too smart for the 1st grade." So the teacher is thinking,
Okay, Timmy, what makes you so special?
he looks at her and says, "My sister's in the 3rd grade, and I'm smarter than her too." Naturally, the teacher, a bit concerned, takes him to the principal's office. She explains the situation, and the principal, a man, says, "No problem. Let's give him a test. If he gets even one question wrong, he goes back to 1st grade." So they sit Timmy down, and the principal starts firing questions at him. He asks, "What's your age if 2 years from now you'll be 10? Timmy quickly replies, 8. Next, the principal asks, "What weighs more, a ton of bricks or a ton of feathers?" And Timmy, without missing a beat, says, "Neither. They weigh the same." The principal glances at the teacher, looking a bit frustrated, but he continues. He asks, "If you have 5 apples and give 2 to your friend, how many apples do you have left?" Timmy grins and answers, 3, but I probably won't give them away, sir." After what felt like an hour of brain-busting questions, the principal turns to the teacher and says, "I see no reason why Timmy can't go to the 3rd grade. He answered all my questions correctly." But the teacher's still not convinced. She decides to throw in some tricky ones of her own. She leans in and asks,
All right, Timmy, let's see how sharp you really are. What do you have in your pants that the principal also has?
The principal's face goes pale. "But Timmy?" Without missing a beat, he replies, "Pockets!" The teacher smirks, but she's still skeptical, so she continues.
What starts with P, goes in my mouth, and is better when it's wet?
Now the principal's squirming in his seat, but Timmy grins and confidently says, "A popsicle!" Now the principal is sweating bullets, but the teacher's not done yet. She asks the final question.
What starts with F, ends with K, and is something your parents do together?
The principal looks like he might faint. But Timmy, with a huge grin, chimes in, "They fork!" At this point, the principal is completely flustered and says, "Move him up to 5th grade, I got all those wrong myself." Huh? So, there's this farmer, Old Man Bill. Now, Bill is the type of guy who's always mad about something. If he's not yelling at the mailman for being 2 minutes late, he's counting his pennies like they're the last ones on earth. And of course, he's obsessed with his watermelons. Won't let anyone near them. One day, his neighbor Jim comes over all freaked out. He says, "Bill, last night, some kids snuck into my field and stole my watermelons. You better watch out, they're probably coming for yours next." Bill's not having that. Nope. So, in his mind, he hatches the perfect plan. He writes this big, bold sign and sticks it right there in his watermelon patch. It says, "Warning, one of these watermelons has been injected with poison." Now Bill's feeling real clever. He's strutting around like, "Yeah, I'm the smartest farmer in town. Who's gonna mess with my melons now?" Next morning, Bill wakes up and heads out to his field, ready to bask in the glory of his untouched watermelons. And sure enough, nothing's missing. Not a single watermelon gone. He's feeling so smug, thinking, "I'm a genius, the Einstein of farming." But then, as he walks towards his sign, he notices something strange. There's another sign, right next to his. This one says, "Now there are 2. A high-powered New York attorney took a vacation in a small, sleepy Florida town. During his stay, he saw a beautiful pink lawn flamingo in someone's yard that he just had to have. So in the dead of night, he snuck into the yard, grabbed the flamingo, but tripped and fell right into a giant puddle of mud. The flamingo went flying over the fence and into the neighbor's yard. The next morning, while the lawyer was snooping around to retrieve the flamingo, an old man named Hank, who owned the neighbor's yard, came out of his house holding a cup of coffee. Hank asked, "What are you doing in my yard, son?" The lawyer, still dirty from the night before, puffed up his chest and said, "That flamingo's mine, and it flew into your yard. I'm taking it back." Hank chuckled. "Well now, this here's my property. You don't just take things that end up in someone else's yard. The lawyer smirked and said, I'm one of the top attorneys in New York City. If you don't let me take back what's mine, I'll have you in court so fast your head will spin. I'll sue you for everything. Hank grinned and replied, Son, we don't handle disputes like that around here. We follow the swamp stomp. The lawyer frowned. What in the world is the swamp stomp? Hank leaned on his cane and said, Well, since we're on my land, I get to stomp you 3 times, then you get to stomp me 3 times. We keep stomping until someone gives up. The lawyer thought for a moment. The old man looked slow and weak. No way he could lose to this guy. Fine, let's do this, he said confidently. Hank put down his coffee, stretched his back, and with surprising agility, stomped the lawyer's foot with his boot, sending the man hopping in pain. His second stomp landed square on the lawyer's shin, and the third came crashing into the lawyer's gut, knocking the wind out of him. The lawyer gasped for air, but finally stood up, clutching his stomach. All right, old man, now it's my turn. Hank took a sip of his coffee, leaned back, and said, Nah, you can keep the flamingo. Huh? So, at a philosophy university, they held a trivia competition. And what's the prize? A free pass on the final project. Every student's dream, right? In the final round. There were only 4 contestants left. Then, in walks this eccentric philosophy professor. He takes an apple, places it on the table, and says, Using everything you've learned, prove that this apple does not exist. Write it down on a piece of paper. Now, these contestants start thinking hard. They spend hours scribbling theories, trying to find a way to prove that the apple doesn't exist. It's like working on an exam question that could drive you insane. Finally, the professor starts reading their answers. First up is David. He says, The apple only exists if it's perceived. If no one is thinking about it, the apple does not exist. The professor just smiles and says, That's pretty philosophical, but not quite right. Next is Sarah. She says, The existence of this apple is irrelevant. From a nihilistic perspective, whether the apple exists or not, it all means nothing. The professor nods. That's a deep answer, but unfortunately, still not correct. Then comes Ethan. He says, This apple only exists in my consciousness. Without external proof from my experience, this apple might not exist. The professor smiles wider. Solid theory, but still not the right answer. Finally, it's Johnny's turn. He steps up and hands in his paper. The professor opens it, and there's nothing written. The professor immediately asks, What is this? Where's your answer? Johnny, looking confused and scratching his head, says, What apple? And the professor bursts out laughing. Exactly right. Huh? So I live in this pretty fancy neighborhood, right? And I decided to treat myself because, why not? I'm a lawyer, I work hard, I deserve something nice. So, I go out and buy a brand new Tesla Roadster. You know, the kind that costs like $250,000 and goes from 0 to 60 faster than your bank account can cry. One day, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm driving this thing, and I stop at a red light. I'm just sitting there chillin', admiring my reflection in the shiny hood, when this old dude pulls up next to me on a Vespa. And I'm talking, this Vespa's older than him. Like, you know those Vespas that are held together by duct tape and a prayer? Yeah, that kind. The old guy looks over at me, squints, because his glasses are like 2 inches thick, and goes, Hey, what kind of spaceship you got there, son? I'm like, Oh, this? It's a Tesla Roadster. He nods. How much that set you back? I say, $250,000. He whistles. Dang, what's it do? Fly? I'm feeling myself now, so I say, well, it does 250 miles per hour, and it's all electric. Old guy takes a beat, looks back at his Vespa and says, Yeah, well, I think I'll stick with my baby here. She's got personality. So I'm like, all right, old man, whatever makes you happy. The light turns green. and I decide to show him what $250,000 can do. I hit the gas, and this thing launches forward like a rocket. I'm flying down the street, going 100 miles per hour in like 4 seconds. I'm feeling invincible. But then, I look in my rearview mirror, and I see this tiny dot behind me getting bigger. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Next thing I know, whoosh! The old man on the Vespa zips right past me. I'm in a freaking Tesla, doing 100, and this dude's smoking me on a Vespa. I'm not having that, so I punch it. I'm going 150 mph now, but there he is again, whoosh, flies past me like it's nothing. At this point, I'm questioning everything. My life choices, my career, whether this guy is a ghost or something. Finally, I floor it. I'm hitting 200, 250 mph. The road's a blur, my heart's racing, and just when I think I've lost him, boom! The dude crashes right into the back of my Tesla. I slam on the brakes, pull over, and the guy's still alive, still sitting on his Vespa. The thing's a wreck, but he's just staring at me like, hey, no big deal. So I rush over to him like, oh my God, are you okay? What happened? He looks up at me, calm as ever, and says, yeah, I'm fine, but can you do me a favor? Can you unhook my suspenders from your side mirror? Huh? Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to make your day even better.